domestic abuse is something that's not easily recognised within the travelling community because it's a male, predominantly male-dominated community, and you tend to keep things indoors. You don't talk about situations or things that happens within a marriage or within a relationship. Because you expect to be ridiculed, put down if you speak out. You just deal with things. You live your everyday life, and things just, in a sense, are normal. So therefore, what isn't normal, you tend to not recognise. You deal with, you put up with. You, in a sense, allow to happen because you're frightened to, as I said, speak out because of where do you go to, who do you seek help from, will you be believed? If you struggle with communication, being understood, will people think that you're lying? That person that you go to seek trouble, will that person turn around and be an accuser and attacker and say, well, you're lying, there's no, this couldn't possibly happen, and obviously your partner he definitely will deny anything did happen in the first place. Yeah, so I was married, still am married. I was married to a person who wasn't seen as a physical threat, in a sense. He wasn't a big fighting man. He was this weak character who intimidated mentally, physically at times. He was the life and the soul, good crack. He was the jiber, the joker, the person who did other people a favour, and he wasn't seen, as I said, as a physical threat because he wasn't a big fighting man. Within the travelling community, you stand your ground, and he wasn't that kind of person, but he was the manipulator. It started basically intimidation, putting me down from the very beginning. That made me doubt what I'd say. Towards the end, it was what I'd say out of my own mind. A control kind of mechanism. I wasn't allowed, I know this sounds silly now, use the remote control, interrupting my conversation, my sentence, finishing my sentences, not knowing what I was speaking about in the first place. Basically making me very insecure in every shape or form. Basically, it was like that from the start, only I didn't understand that. I didn't see it as a threat. I didn't see it. I knew it didn't feel right. I knew it wasn't right. But I thought this was, I know it may sound naive, this was marriage. I knew he wasn't my equal, intellectually my equal, but I tried to build him up. He encouraged me to do that. As I said, you live in this life, you don't recognise it. You just deal with it. If you recognise it, deal with it. There was times I would say, oh, hold on, this is not right, this shouldn't be happening. But I then look at another scenario, it could be worse. It could be physically attacked every day of the week. Within the travelling community, if physically attacked is black eyes, domestic violence is black eyes, broken bones, or really bad violence, physical violence like that. But it's not the mental torture, it's not the sexual torture. It's and what goes on between a man and his wife is between a man and his wife. No one comes between a man and his wife. You're made to feel that you have to. You're made to feel that you have to build this person up. You've got to think their thinking, their way of thinking. You've got to make them think that they've thought of this in the first place. I know it sounds silly. It's really hard going back in there because it's like a kaleidoscope. I look back and I see the door closed. I see what used to happen was he'd mentally or torturally abused me outside, like in a situation we were in a pub or a family event or anything. He'd leave me insecure, and I'd only want, when I drive, by this time I drove, to get him home, so he wouldn't be in physical danger. I was the person caring for him instead of the other way around. He was my concern, his safety was my concern. There was times when I couldn't speak and I'd feel so tormented inside, because I'd see what was happening, I'd know what was happening, and I know the build-up, but there was nothing I could say about it. I couldn't speak out, I couldn't recognise it, because I couldn't put him in danger, but yet he could physically put me in danger. Then we'd come home to get him from the vehicle and go through getting that lengthy journey. Once I knew there was diesel in the motor, I had enough diesel to get home. I wouldn't mind about where or how I got. If I got lost, I'd find my way. Getting home and then getting him into the home, and it'd be dark at night. Mentally torturing, waiting for daylight to come, knowing that once daylight would come, he'd be a changed character. It'd be like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of scenario. But as I said, I was living in a semi-coma. You live and you cope with what's going on, and you deal with it to the best of your ability. And especially if you have no outreach, if you've no one to contact or no one, you're frightened of lack of communication, and you're frightened of being understood and being believed, and being ridiculed. Therefore, is it further entrapment and empowerment to the person who's doing that to you in the first place. And one night I just said no. He didn't take it kindly, nicely. Took it negatively and referred it back onto me, but that was it. And then it was several months later, we separated. I asked him to leave, caused a big scene, because I was the aggressor. I was the person that made him leave. He didn't want to leave his wife, his children, as he'd say. But I couldn't live that double-barreled life. I wanted an education. I wanted an education not only for myself. I wanted a life for my children, for my girls. And I think my mother's death empowered me to do that. A few years later, there was a new officer placed in Hertfordshire, Gypsy and Travel Liaison Officer. And I went to meet this person, who happened to be a man. I had a connection, a female officer, a friend I knew through my meetings, and she arranged this meeting. And then met this officer in his uniform, and his name was Kevin Moore. He just got this job. He was just 2 or 3 weeks on the job, and I struggled to explain to him about how serious the consequences was, not just because of my husband, but my brothers as well, and other immediate family. How serious and how the consequences were for me, the repercussions. But because I didn't have any physical marks, I thought this person would not believe me. But he did believe me. And the fact, I didn't believe that he believed me for a long time. But in his role, he got to know the travelling community, he got to know other people, and that was my insecurity. That was my insecurity, that I wouldn't be believed. But I got a marker, signal marker, Kevin got a signal marker put on my address, and a panic alarm several occasions. But the fact that I had someone to communicate via someone to the police made that connection, made that a learning curve, building of bridges. And also it encouraged other women that same thing by my doing this action, because I said to other people that that's what I did, because I felt that it did happen to me, and it was nothing for me to be ashamed. I was the victim, not the perpetrator, not the person who was causing this. And I wanted my ex to know as well that I would bring it to legal. I would, because I have my children to think of and their safety. And that's, and also I wanted to have a life. I wanted to be free. I would contact police. I would make as much hooly as I could, be frank about it. I would go to liaison officer, speak to a liaison officer, or if you feel more comfortable with a female officer, I would emphasise that this is that I need help. I would seek help from Sunflower, which is domestic violence organisation. There is help out there. It's knowing how to get this help, which a lot of issues in the trafficking community would mount down to being illiterate, not being able to read and write. So I think it would be health services coming on site, doctor, your priest, but basically I think really importantly would be the police, and to know that the police are not going to be judgmental. They have vast experience in dealing with these issues in all communities, and that you will get the help where you think there's no turning point, there's no way forward. You will be surprised at the help and support that you will receive. All my life now has changed. I have moved on. I'm a law student. I work, I do a lot of voluntary work within the Gypsy and Traveller community and the Gypsy and Traveller liaison worker here in Hertfordshire. I also work with service providers, there's the police, health trusts and education, doing presentations on Gypsy and Traveller culture. So I think, and plus my children, my kids, I've got girls, they're going to school and they're going to have an education themselves. So, plus the fact that I know that there is victims out there, and slowly that they're, by my spreading the word and working closely with domestic violence staff and officers, we can spread the word and go to the base, go on sites or go to houses and make these services and connections available, and let it be known that there is help. There is a turning point.